Good morning. I'm the Reverend Tony Lorenzen, the minister at the Mattituck Unitarian Universalist Society and the Unitarian Universalist Church in Meriden. And all of us welcome you to our online service this morning. We are very happy you have decided to join us. We are finishing up our month-long series on the spiritual theme of commitment today. I'll be reflecting a bit on our commitment to racial justice. What does it look like for each of us to step up our own personal commitment to racial justice? And what does it look like for our congregation to step up its commitment to racial justice? Before we begin, we will start, as we always do, by lighting the symbol of our faith, the flaming chalice. May this chalice flame remind us of the commitments we make to ourselves, others, and the world around us, to seek justice, practice kindness, and side with love.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirit into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Hi. This morning we're going to see an example of how to intervene when someone makes a racist comment in public. Notice how the people who intervene focus attention on what was said as the racist thing and not the person saying it being a racist. The person saying the offensive things may indeed be a racist, but naming that will only make the person angrier and more defensive. It's difficult enough pointing out the rude behavior. Let's take a look.
If it wasn't for you people and your China virus, I wouldn't have to wear this stupid mask.
Hi there. Excuse me? My name's Mary. What's your name?
What? Oh, Kevin. Yeah, my I'm Kevin.
Hi, well, Kevin, I'd like to invite you to reconsider using words like you people and China virus. They can come across as very racist, and I'm sure that's not who you are. And they can also come across as mean and make people afraid of you. And I don't think that's what you want, because that's not the kind of person you want to be seen as, right? I mean, you seem like a nice enough guy.
Are you calling me a racist? I'm not a racist.
Yeah, Kevin. Hi, my name's Yuna, and I'm Japanese, not Chinese, for whatever that's worth. And she didn't call you a racist. She said when you use those kind of words, you sound racist. Those words are hurtful. Yeah, and I didn't like them. So, thanks for not saying those things.
After Mary and Una intervened, Kevin calmed down and people went back to getting their coffee. It's not always going to work out this way. Sometimes any intervention at all will make people angrier. Mary had her partner with her, and this took place indoors around a lot of people. Mary assessed the situation, used a calm voice and a gentle approach, giving her the best chance for success. There's no doubt it can be risky to speak up. There are times when it may not feel safe to intervene, and that's okay. But as white people, we need to find the courage to do this more often, especially when other white people are being rude and hurtful. Should you find yourself in a situation like this, and it feels safe enough to try and speak up, use a calm voice, focus on words and actions, not the person, and invite the person into conversation, because conversations build community.
One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
Racial justice is not just an imperative because the Unitarian Universalist Association Commission on Institutional Change issued a report called Widening the Circle of Concern that called us to do better in terms of being anti-racist and dismantling white supremacy culture in our congregations. Racial justice is an imperative because the common values of our faith demand it. If we take our values seriously as Unitarian Universalists, we must dismantle white supremacy culture. We must be anti-racist. One of our foundational theological ideas, our very first principle, is the dignity and worth of every person. You cannot respect the dignity and worth of every person and be racist. If you are going to respect the dignity and worth of every person, you must be actively anti-racist and actively work to dismantle white supremacy culture. It is a basic calling of what we value. One of our other founding theological ideas is that human relationships should be based on love and mutual respect and not coercion. Racism and white supremacy are in their very nature, by definition, coercive. You cannot treat people with respect and then disrespect their right to vote, their right to equal opportunity, their right to health care, their right to life, their right to exist. Another major theological idea of Unitarian Universalism is that there is no immaculate conception of virtue. Good things will not just happen. We must use our agency as we can to help make them happen. We must use our agency for the good. And we do this because we are called by an existential imperative to create beloved community where everyone is truly treated with dignity and respect. It is part of being Unitarian Universalist to be aware of white privilege, to dismantle white supremacy, and to actively be an anti-racist. There was an article not too long ago in the Unitarian Universalist World magazine, the UU World, about activism in Unitarian Universalism. It asked, must you be an activist to be a Unitarian Universalist? And they had 6 ministers offer responses to various questions around this topic. And the piece led off with, is it required to be an activist to be a Unitarian Universalist? And my good friend Robin Bartlett, the Reverend Robin Bartlett, gave the shortest reply of them all. And she said, no. And I do agree. You are not required to be an activist if we take that to mean you are out there at every single protest and you are one of those, chief organizers. But you are required, I believe, to act for justice. And I think there's a bit of a difference between being an activist, how we usually think of that word, and acting for justice. So I think my answer to this would be a qualified yes. There's part of Unitarian Universalism that requires us to act for justice, and in that sense requires us to be activists or activistic. Now let's understand that not everyone is going to be a frontline protester. Not everyone is a frontline demonstrator. Not everyone is called to be the person laying their body down and getting arrested. To put your body where your theology is, as one of my Methodist friends and colleagues likes to say. But all of us have things we can do to be activists. We can write checks. We can organize behind the scenes. We can support the people who are on the front lines. We can make phone calls and send text messages. We can circulate petitions. We can show up to testify at legislatures and hearings. We may not be the one committing civil disobedience, but we must be part of the same team as those that do in the struggle against white supremacy and racism. Widening the circle of concern reminds us that we cannot ignore the important call to support the cause, and we can't skip out on the responsibility to continue to educate ourselves. And in this sense, we are called to be activists. Eventually, given a dire enough situation, all of us able-bodied enough to do so may eventually be required to put our physical safety, our very lives on the line. Justice makes powerful demands of us sometimes. Being called to be anti-racist, being called to dismantle white supremacy and white supremacy culture, I believe it's important that we have some basic understandings, a kind of baseline of common understanding of some basic terms and or ideas and concepts as we try to go further in this work together. First is that racism is a systemic issue. The entire fabric of our society is based on the idea of white supremacy and white privilege. Bigoted individuals who have hatred in their heart or actively hate, dislike, or denigrate others who are different because of the color of their skin are a symptom of that systemic evil. But when we talk about dismantling white supremacy culture and being anti-racist, we're not talking about trying to reduce the number of individuals who are hateful and oppressive and discriminatory. We want that to happen. But the way that happens is not by picking out individuals who need to change their ways. It's by changing an entire system. To stop that system, to end it, we must be actively anti-racist. There is no such thing as not racist. You are either actively anti-racist or you are for racism. There is no in-between of, well, I'm not racist, and then you try to not really deal with the issue. This is one thing where you are on one side or the other. We must remember that being colorblind is not a virtue. It ignores the reality of the lived experiences of people. We can say we are all fundamentally equal in what makes us human beings, but we are all unique in the sense that we all have our own combination of heritage, culture, experience, color, language, religion. And to not see those fundamental differences among us is to ignore what makes one individual who they are, and allows you the privilege to say that the individual you are is somehow okay and better, and that you don't need to know what makes them different. And what makes them different may, by its nature, give them experiences which are difficult, hurtful, hateful, unfair, and we need to understand that about each other. Black lives matter. Anyone who understands this understands that all lives should matter, but black lives still do not matter. Not when black people are 7 times more likely to die in an encounter with police. White people told the dehumanizing lie that black people were inferior in order to justify the evil of slavery. Then they told the lie that black people were dangerous in order to justify Jim Crow and segregation. Then they told the lie that black people are drug addicts and violent criminals to justify the school-to-prison pipeline and the new Jim Crow. Now they tell the lie that black people are cheaters and want to steal elections so they can create laws that unduly restrict access to voting. You see, black lives haven't mattered all along in this society. So since the beginning of America to today, black lives haven't mattered, nor do they still matter as much as white lives. So when we say black lives matter, we say it not as a suggestion or an opinion, but as a non-negotiable statement of fact and a demand that they need to matter too. Defunding the police. Police in our country began as fugitive slave patrols. American police is very militarized, increasingly over-militarized, and it's racially biased. Are all police evil? No, I have a cousin who's a policeman. He's a great guy. But we're not talking about individuals. Here, again, it's not about individuals who are good, but a system that overall has a lot of racial bias that ends up deadly for people of color. Quibbling over the preciseness of language instead of implementing and acting on the ideas behind it is very white. Might it be more accurate to say we want to refund the police, fund them a different way, fund them less militarized, put more money in social services? Yes. Is it a good idea to have some kind of public safety in our society? Sure. But understand, when we say defund the police, what we mean is to let's change this system that has grown up in the history of this country, starting with slave patrols and ending with a militarized force that is racially biased. Reparations. So much has been lost to slavery, to Jim Crow, to the school-to-prison pipeline, that there's a debt, and a huge one, that needs to actually be repaid. Somehow, monetarily, we need to find a way to make that reparation. The question isn't reparations yes or no, it's how are we going to do this? And we need to find a way. Before I issue a call to take another step in our own development, one more step towards being even more anti-racist, towards dismantling white supremacy, I want to thank you for everything you already do. This is a hard road, and we all do it step by step, one step at a time. There's a lot you have done that is good and that we do well. So let's not lose those positives. We know that as ethical, earnest, justice-minded white people, we can tend to beat ourselves up with guilt over not being woke enough or not being just enough. And that's not the purpose of this morning. This is all ongoing work, and I want us all to take another step and get better. But let's remember, congratulations for Justice Woodbury and Justice Southbury. There are a handful of Moose members who have been there virtually every single Sunday for nearly a year now. Let's give them some more company on a regular basis. I know I can't make every Sunday, but I'd love to see more of us regularly. Green Sanctuary, great work. Global climate change will affect people of color and disempower people of color more than white people. In general, people of color live more in Africa and the global south, and those places will be affected disproportionately first and hardest. Good job on our participation in democracy. It's one of our foundational values as Unitarian Universalists. And a lot of us are actively involved in the process of voting, getting people out to vote, upholding voter access and voter rights. It's a good job. Good job taking care of our immigrant community, from helping with the financial burdens of our undocumented community, to helping our resettled immigrants and refugees, to housing people in sanctuary, to showing up for our immigrant neighbors and our undocumented neighbors yesterday on the Meriden Green in support of legislation that would enable undocumented immigrants access to Husky in state-sponsored healthcare in Connecticut. We do good stuff. And now let's do better. The Commission on Institutional Change, in their report, Widening the Circle of Concern, has some great recommendations that we can enact as congregations. Let's form accountable community partnerships. How do we follow the lead of the most affected in our community? Those who are most affected by economic, political, and other oppressions. How do we partner with them, and how do we follow their lead? How do we financially organize to support organizations led by Black, Indigenous, and people of color? Might our share the plate, and might our percentage of plate that goes to our social justice team be mandated that at least half of that every year or more goes to Black, Indigenous, and people of color-led organizations? And let us conduct an anti-oppression audit. Both of our boards are now thinking about goals for the next couple of years. And let's make one of the goals for next year an anti-oppression audit for our congregation. How are we doing? Where might we do better? So we can make real specific plans on taking next steps. We need to do this because racism is a white problem and white supremacy is a white problem, and white people must find solutions. Most importantly, we must educate and activate other white people. And yes, this can get tiring and difficult at times. I'm exhausted, and I've been angry. In doing this work, I've lost friends and colleagues, some who called me out and dismissed me, some who I called out. I'm physically and emotionally drained with it at times. I feel like I could barely deal with racial justice during COVID. I don't always have the time to stand out on Sunday afternoons, and I always feel bad about that. I can't make every single protest. I can't make every teach-in. I did take the Beloved Conversations course. But as much as I can't do, I also need to stay engaged. I can rest, but I can't stop. I need to find ways to take one more step in the direction of beloved community. I need to side up just a little closer to love. And I've got to keep moving. Among other reasons, because Tuesday, the Connecticut Legislature Human Services Committee will decide whether or not SB 956 gets out of committee to the floor for consideration by the entire legislature. It's an important bill. This bill would extend Husky health care to undocumented immigrants. The uninsured rate for all people in Connecticut is about 6%, but for undocumented immigrants, it's 52%. Healthcare is a human right, not a white privilege, not a rich privilege. So, Representative Kathy Abercrombie from Meriden is the co-chair of the Health and Human Services Committee. Her office phone number is on the screen. It is 860-240-0492. I'm sure almost all of you who are watching right now have a phone. Call her right now. Go ahead, we'll wait. The list of the rest of the committees will be posted in our chats. Call them. Tell Representative Abercrombie and tell the other representatives on this committee that you want them to vote to send SB 956 to the full legislature for consideration for a vote. Tell them you want this because healthcare is a human right. Tell them you're a Unitarian Universalist and the dignity and worth of every person requires that they have access to healthcare. Go ahead, call. There'll be some music before the prayer. You have time. In fact, consider the call the beginning of our prayer today. It's a prayer in itself. Side up a little closer to love. I invite you to join me in a spirit of meditation and prayer as we meditate with the words by Anna Bethay on the embodiment of white supremacy. Do your shoulders and neck tighten, and does your head throb with tension when the news arrives of a state enacting laws to make it more difficult to vote, especially and purposefully to diminish the voter turnout of people of color? Does a rage well up within you, unbalancing your entire system? And does your throat get raw with the scream that escapes your soul when you read the memes with the list of names from Atlanta and Boulder? Does your mind find it hard to think? And do your eyes hurt with the migraine of unreasonableness when you hear the ridiculous arguments against gun control? Does your heart feel pierced when another person who looks like you or looks like your brother is gunned down, a spectacle commissioned by the people who swear an oath to protect your community? Does your mouth go dry, your throat close up when you come face to face with the realization of your own perpetuation of white cultural norms or an ignorance of other worthy ways of being? Are you numb all over because your body has decided this is too much to bear? Your mind says go, your body says no. Does your stomach churn when tu familia is hunted down and expelled from the places they risked to go to carve out a better life? Do your arms go numb when you feel helpless to do anything to console, mend, fix the injustices you see all around you? Or does your whole body ache, telling you to close into yourself, to cut ties with the world that is just too much? These are the effects of white supremacy on our bodies, yours and mine and the others watching with us. There is a place where these can be healed, in a beloved community which sees and hears and experiences these ills alongside you and chooses to care, to get involved, to connect. This beloved community is the place where you can reclaim your time to process the horror and disconnect the rest of the world, the things which others would sweep under the rug. This is where you can belong because you are loved, not loved because you belong. In a beloved community, you'll be reminded of some truths that transcend the chaos and the oppression the dominant culture denies. That your body is free, that your mind is free, and that your love is a gift ready for the giving in every moment. You are the one we've been waiting for, to take part, build, and bolster this community for any who seek refuge. My dear ones, in a world where the trauma of pandemic visits us, and the trauma of violence visits us, and the trauma of attacks against democracy visit us, and the trauma of white supremacy visits us, it is within our congregations we find and share this beloved community of belonging, meaning, and friendship. We create and sustain the connections of heart and spirit that enable us to live and to thrive. We pledge to support others in this community as we trust they will support us when we need comfort and friendship. Today, we hold these people especially close to our hearts. Adele Taylor, who is home after having hip surgery, and she'll hike and dance soon. Becky Skinner's granddaughter Lyra, who is recovering and doing very well. Also Randy Heath and Steve Barnes, Paul Richard and Rhiannon Klein, Cassandra Hardaby and Connie Welton. Also all those whose lives have been lost or altered by COVID-19. All those struggling with dis-ease and illness, both visible and invisible. All those whose lives have been lost to the evils of white supremacy and patriarchy. May the love of this community inspire us and strengthen us in our own life's journey. May the light of the chalice remind us that we are all part of the sacred fire of life and treasured members of these congregations. May we never forget that the Spirit of life connects us with the love that holds us all. Amen.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love.
Hey everybody, it's Reverend Tony. Shortly, everyone in both the UU Church in Meriden and the Mattituck UU Society will be receiving materials about the annual Stewardship and Pledge Drive. So I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about that for a minute. I'm hoping everyone will be generous. I'd love to see us reach a level where we could have 100% participation, that everyone who is able to do so pledges something. Even $5 a month is a $60 a year pledge. And if you can do more than that, please do, and we're very grateful for that. But if everybody could consider at least a $5 a month pledge for a $60 a year pledge, we'd love to have 100% participation. Now, to go along with this, I want to remind you of the congregation's commitment to you. COVID has affected a lot of us financially, including the congregations. If you are someone who's been really affected by COVID financially, or was even struggling financially before the pandemic, I want you to know that the congregation, either in Meriden or at Mattituck, we want to be able to help you if you're struggling. If even that $5 a month is a lot for you to promise, please be in touch with me or someone else you know or trust on our boards and let us know, because we have a commitment to be helping you. And instead of you helping the congregation, now's the time for us to also find out what we can do to make your situation better if we can. So when you get those materials, please think about them. You know, the days of a congregation being able to sustain itself completely on annual pledge donations from its members are probably over unless you have a really large and or really wealthy congregation. But that doesn't mean your pledge is less important. It means your commitment is even more important, because the amount we need to make up from pledges to cover our budget, you know, is going to be less the more people can donate. And if we can get to a situation where the fundraising does not just cover our budget, it means we have a chance to use that money to grow in creative ways and try some new things. So as you get that stewardship material this spring, please be as generous as you can. And if a $5 a month commitment is even too much, please be in touch with me, because we want to know how we can help you out too. Thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.
I'm Angela Frisbee. The first and fourth Sundays of the month are Share the Plate Sundays, where half of the plate donations go to the Social Justice Fund to help support local organizations as well as those in the greater world. Recently, we gave $100 to the Encore Fund that supports Color of Change, as well as purchasing groceries for PB&J sandwiches for Waterbury's Food Kitchen. Please give generously if you can. Thank you.
Our service may be drawing to a close, but there's always coffee hour. Please pour a cup of your favorite beverage and zoom on in. Join us for coffee at go.uumeriden.org. go.uucentralct.org/coffee. That's go.uucentralct.org/coffee. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound.
We're very glad you decided to join us this morning. Thanks for being with us. If you're new to us, please leave me a note in the chat if you'd like me to be in touch. My email is revtonyuu, revtonyuu@gmail.com. And please email me if you'd like me to be in touch to chat a little bit more about our congregations or Unitarian Universalism. We've put out our chalice flame, and we are reminded once again that we take that flame with us and carry it in our heart wherever we go. May its sacred fire indeed remind us of our holy commitments to ourselves, others, and the world around us. We'll see you next week, holy ones. Go in peace.
Thank you.